God is saying, someone is warning you about a person whose name begins with the letter M. Don't skip. Listen to God now before it's too late. It's very urgent. You cannot afford to ignore this, because what I am revealing right now is connected to your safety, your peace, and a blessing that the enemy has been trying to block from reaching your hands. I am speaking with urgency because delay will only make the situation harder, and I do not want you walking blindly into pain that I have already seen ahead of you. The warning about the person whose name begins with the letter M is not random, and it is not fear, but it is my protection rising up around you before something breaks your heart or confuses your spirit. If you receive this, and you are ready to stand under my protection, comment 1111. I am telling you clearly that someone has already tried to warn you about this person whose name begins with the letter M, and you felt something in your spirit, but you pushed it aside because you wanted peace or because you did not want conflict. I am saying this now before it's too late, because this connection carries hidden weight, and if you continue without discernment, it can slowly drain your joy and cloud your judgment. The warning is not about hate or revenge, but about boundaries and wisdom, because I protect those who listen when I speak with urgency. You are not being called to panic, but you are being called to open your eyes and pay attention to the small signs that you have already noticed but tried to ignore. There is a reason this is very urgent, because timing matters, and obedience at the right moment can save you from months of regret and silent suffering. I see how you try to believe the best about everyone, and I honor your kind heart. But I am asking you to balance kindness with discernment so that you do not allow the wrong influence to sit too close to your destiny. The person whose name begins with the letter M may smile in front of you while carrying intentions that are not aligned with my plan for your life, and I am stepping in now before it's too late to redirect your steps. If this is touching your heart and you feel my spirit confirming what you already sensed, take a moment to like this video so that this word can reach others who also need protection and clarity right now. I am not exposing this situation to embarrass anyone, but to shield you from harm that could quietly grow if left unchecked. I have always gone before you, and even when you did not understand why certain doors closed or certain relationships shifted, it was my hand guiding you away from danger. The warning about the person whose name begins with the letter M is connected to influence, because influence shapes decisions, and decisions shape destiny over time. You have been stepping into a season where your calling is becoming clearer, and the enemy knows that confusion through the wrong association can delay your growth and weaken your confidence. I am urging you not to share everything with this person, not to reveal every plan, and not to lean on their advice when your spirit feels unsettled inside. Do not ignore the gentle discomfort that rises when certain conversations happen, because that discomfort is often my spirit protecting you before words turn into wounds. I am not asking you to create drama or speak harshly, but I am guiding you to step back quietly, to observe more, and to pray more deeply before making commitments that involve this person whose name begins with the letter M. This is very urgent, because the next few choices you make will either strengthen your peace or disturb it. And I desire your peace more than anything. I have called you chosen and favored, and that means not every person can walk closely beside you in every season of your life. Sometimes separation is protection, and distance is healing that you do not yet understand. The warning is my love speaking, because I see motives that you cannot see and patterns that you have not fully recognized. You are not alone in this, and you are not foolish for caring, but you must trust that I see the full picture while you only see a part. As you move forward, guard your heart and slow down your reactions, because urgency does not mean fear, but it means awareness guided by my wisdom. The person whose name begins with the letter M may attempt to pull you into arguments, guilt, or emotional pressure, but you must stand firm and remember that you answer to me first. I am strengthening you right now so that you will not be manipulated by words that sound sweet but carry hidden agendas. Type Amen. I am covering you with my protection as you listen, and I am clearing confusion from your mind so that you can recognize truth without second-guessing yourself. The warning is not meant to make you anxious, but to make you alert and grounded in my presence. I am your defender, your provider, and your guide, and when I say listen before it's too late, it is because I love you too deeply to let you walk into unnecessary pain. I have already stirred your heart once, and now I am deepening your understanding so that you will not mistake temporary calm for true safety. This is still very urgent because patterns are unfolding quietly, and if you ignore what I am revealing, you may find yourself entangled in emotional confusion that could have been avoided through obedience. The person whose name begins with the letter M has influence in your life in ways you may not fully admit, because sometimes influence hides behind familiarity, shared history, or repeated conversations that seem harmless on the surface. I see how this person subtly shapes your mood, your decisions, and even your confidence, sometimes lifting you up but other times leaving you drained without clear reason. I am asking you to notice the fruit of every interaction, because fruit never lies, and the emotional residue after you spend time with someone reveals more than their words ever could. If you trust my guidance over your feelings right now, comment 1010, what's really behind the 7-second brain trick exploding online. A leaked CIA ritual is turning heads and bank balances. Backed by neuroscience labs, this at-home method removes money blocks and unlocks unstoppable wealth flow. But the page could vanish anytime. Click the link in the first comment before it's permanently deleted. You must understand that I am not speaking to create suspicion in your heart toward everyone around you, but I am highlighting one connection because it carries spiritual weight that touches your calling and your peace. The enemy often works through distraction and emotional entanglement rather than obvious harm. And the person whose name begins with the letter M may not even realize how their behavior aligns with forces that try to delay your growth. I see the subtle discouragement that creeps in after certain conversations, the doubt that rises about your worth, and the confusion that follows when your plans are questioned or minimized. This is very urgent because you are entering a season where clarity is required for breakthrough, and clarity cannot grow in an atmosphere of manipulation or subtle control. I am teaching you to discern between correction that builds you and criticism that slowly tears you down, because one is rooted in love, while the other is rooted in insecurity or hidden agendas. The person whose name begins with the letter M may shift between kindness and coldness in ways that keep you emotionally off balance. And that instability is not my design for your life. I want you to begin observing without announcing your observations, because wisdom often grows in silence before it speaks through action. You do not need to confront everything immediately, but you do need to guard your inner world so that no one else's instability becomes your burden. I am strengthening your backbone in the spirit so that you will not be swayed by guilt, pressure, or emotional storytelling that pulls you away from what I have already shown you. There may be moments when this person whose name begins with the letter M appears supportive, and those moments can create confusion because you will wonder if the warning was only your imagination. I am telling you clearly that inconsistency is part of the pattern, because occasional kindness can be used to maintain access and trust. This is why I am urging you not to evaluate the situation based on isolated moments, but to look at the overall pattern across time. You have felt that something was not fully aligned, yet you continued because you hoped things would improve or because you feared the discomfort of distance. I see your heart, and I know you prefer harmony over conflict, but harmony without truth eventually becomes silent suffering. This is very urgent because prolonged exposure to the wrong influence can slowly reshape your thinking until you no longer recognize your own voice. I am reminding you that you are chosen and favored, and that means your circle must align with your calling. Not everyone who walks with you today is meant to walk with you into the next chapter I am opening. The person whose name begins with the letter M may have been allowed in one season for a purpose, but seasons change, and what was once neutral can become harmful if it remains beyond its time. As you begin to adjust your boundaries, do not feel guilty for protecting your peace, because peace is a gift from me and not something you owe away to maintain approval. You are not responsible for managing another person's emotions at the cost of your own stability. I am teaching you that love does not require you to tolerate manipulation, and forgiveness does not mean continued access to your vulnerability. In the coming days, you may notice increased attempts from this person, whose name begins with the letter M, to draw closer, to ask more questions, or to re-establish emotional control. Do not respond with fear, but respond with calm distance and limited information, because oversharing can reopen doors that I am gently closing for your protection. This is not about punishment, but about positioning you for the blessings that require a clear and stable environment. Type 1212. I am guiding you step by step so that you will not act out of anger or pride, but out of wisdom and obedience. I am also protecting you from retaliation or misunderstanding, because when you align with my instruction, I take responsibility for the outcome. The warning about the person whose name begins with the letter M is part of my greater plan to refine your discernment and strengthen your spiritual maturity. There is a breakthrough ahead that requires emotional freedom, and emotional freedom cannot flourish while you are entangled in subtle pressure or hidden negativity. I am preparing you for relationships that reflect my love, my peace, and my truth without hidden motives. This is why I am speaking so firmly, because delay in separation can delay destiny, and I do not want you arriving late to what I have prepared. You are not losing anything that was truly meant for you, because what is ordained for your life cannot be stolen by stepping back from the wrong connection. The person whose name begins with the letter M does not hold your future in their hands, and their opinion does not define your value. I am your source, your defender, and your provider. And when I warn you before it's too late, it is because I see storms forming that you cannot yet see from your current position. This remains very urgent, because the next stage of your life requires sharper discernment than you have ever used before, and I am training your spirit to recognize what your emotions sometimes excuse. The person whose name begins with the letter M has learned how to position themselves close to your thoughts, sometimes speaking into your plans before you have even fully formed them in prayer. I see how their words can sound reasonable, even caring, yet something inside you tightens and grows uneasy after the conversation ends. That tightening is not anxiety without cause, but my spirit nudging you to slow down and reconsider how much influence you allow this connection to carry. The secret ritual they never wanted public is finally out. A 7-second brain technique, backed by leaked CIA data and 4 neuroscience labs, is helping families erase debt and attract money on autopilot. But this miracle won't stay public long. Click the link in the description and comments now before it's gone forever. You have noticed that when you share dreams or ideas, the response from this person sometimes contains subtle doubt wrapped in concern, and over time that doubt begins to echo in your own mind. I am exposing this because repeated exposure to subtle disbelief can quietly weaken your confidence in what I have spoken over your life. This is very urgent because confidence rooted in me is necessary for the doors I am about to open, and I will not allow hidden discouragement to erode what I have built within you. There may also be emotional cycles with the person whose name begins with the letter M, where closeness is followed by distance, warmth is followed by silence, and support is followed by criticism. These cycles are not accidents but patterns, and patterns reveal deeper motives or unresolved issues that can spill into your life if you remain too entangled. I am teaching you that instability in relationships creates instability in focus, and instability in focus can delay the manifestation of my promises. You are not being called to hate or to attack, but to awaken and realign. Awakening requires honesty, and honesty sometimes feels uncomfortable because it forces you to admit what you hoped was not true. I see your reluctance to accept that this warning is necessary. Yet my love compels me to speak before it's too late, because prevention is always gentler than repair after damage has occurred. The person whose name begins with the letter M may also attempt to present themselves as indispensable, creating the impression that without them you will struggle or lose support. This is not truth, because I am your true source, and any human support that tries to replace my position in your life becomes unhealthy over time. I am removing the illusion that you need this connection in order to thrive, because dependence on the wrong foundation can lead to collapse when pressure increases. You may feel moments of guilt as you begin to step back, especially if this person questions your distance or accuses you of changing. I want you to understand that growth often looks like change to those who benefited from your previous boundaries being too loose. This is very urgent because if guilt controls you, you may retreat into old patterns just to keep temporary peace, and that retreat would reopen doors. I am carefully closing for your safety. Comment 777. I am strengthening your inner voice so that you will not be easily persuaded by emotional intensity or dramatic expressions that attempt to draw you back into deeper involvement. Emotional intensity is not the same as spiritual alignment, and I want you to learn the difference clearly so that you will not confuse passion with purpose. The person whose name begins with the letter M may speak with urgency of their own, but urgency without truth is simply pressure disguised as importance. I am also revealing that jealousy may exist beneath the surface, especially as you begin to rise into new confidence and clarity. Sometimes when one person begins to grow, another who is insecure may unconsciously attempt to limit that growth to maintain balance. I do not expose this to create superiority in you, but to protect you from shrinking yourself to keep someone else comfortable. This is very urgent because shrinking yourself is a slow betrayal of the calling I placed on your life, and repeated shrinking can become a habit that feels normal. I did not design you to dim your light to preserve fragile egos, and I will not allow you to trade destiny for temporary approval. The person whose name begins with the letter M may not openly admit insecurity, yet their reactions to your progress can reveal more than their words ever will. You must begin choosing conversations wisely, sharing selectively, and protecting your plans until they are strong enough to stand without interference. I am guiding you to pray more before responding, because silence in the right moment can prevent unnecessary conflict. When you do speak calmly and firmly, without defensiveness, because confidence does not need to shout. There will be a moment soon when the truth of this warning becomes undeniable, and you will recognize clearly why I insisted on speaking with urgency. That moment may come through a revealed lie, an exposed intention, or a reaction that confirms what your spirit has sensed all along. When it happens, do not feel shock or anger, but feel gratitude that you were prepared in advance rather than blindsided. Type 999. I am walking with you through this transition so that you will not feel isolated or abandoned. As you create healthier distance from the person whose name begins with the letter M, I will fill the space with stronger connections that reflect my peace and my truth. Nothing you release in obedience will leave a permanent void, because I replace what is removed with something aligned and stable. This season is refining your discernment like never before, and that refinement will serve you far beyond this single situation. You are learning to trust the quiet signals I place within your spirit rather than waiting for dramatic evidence to justify action. That is maturity, and maturity protects destiny from avoidable detours. You must understand that every connection carries an atmosphere, and that atmosphere either strengthens your peace or slowly weakens it over time. This remains very urgent because you are stepping into a sensitive season where your discernment must be sharper than your emotions, and I am refining that discernment through this experience. There are moments when you feel energized and hopeful after spending time in prayer or planning your future, yet after interacting with this person whose name begins with the letter M, that clarity feels slightly clouded. You may not immediately recognize the shift, but I see how your thoughts become heavier, your confidence softens, and your joy dims just enough to slow your momentum. That subtle dimming is not accidental, and it is not something you should dismiss as imagination, because repeated exposure to the wrong atmosphere gradually reshapes your inner world. Is this leaked CIA ritual the missing key to your financial breakthrough? A once hidden brain ritual is spreading fast. This strange 7-second method, confirmed by elite neuroscience labs, activates your brain's wealth magnet. The government may shut this down. If you're seeing this, you are God's chosen child. Click the link in the description and comments before it's deleted. This is very urgent because atmosphere determines growth, and growth determines destiny. If you plant a healthy seed in unhealthy soil, the seed struggles not because it lacks potential, but because the environment works against it. I am protecting the seed of your calling, your confidence, and your future, and that is why I am drawing attention again to the person whose name begins with the letter M. There may also be hidden competition beneath the surface of this relationship, even if it has never been openly spoken. When you begin to rise, achieve, or receive attention for your growth, I see subtle shifts in tone, body language, or enthusiasm that do not fully celebrate your progress. Competition that hides behind smiles is more dangerous than open rivalry because it allows access while quietly resisting your advancement. I am not revealing this to create pride in you, but to protect your humility from being manipulated. You are not called to compete, and you are not called to prove yourself to anyone whose insecurity feels threatened by your growth. The person whose name begins with the letter M may not consciously recognize these patterns within themselves, yet the effects are real, and the effects are touching your spirit. Comment 555. As you begin to recognize these layers, do not allow bitterness to take root in your heart, because bitterness would only create another form of bondage. I am guiding you toward clarity without hatred, distance without drama, and strength without cruelty. This is a lesson in spiritual maturity, and maturity means you can step back without the need to expose or embarrass anyone. The urgency continues because there may soon be a moment where you are asked to make a commitment, share a resource, or align yourself publicly with the person whose name begins with the letter M. That moment will require clear boundaries, and if you have not already settled your heart in obedience, pressure may push you into agreement that you later regret. I am preparing you now so that when that moment arrives, you will already know how to respond calmly and confidently. You must also understand that sometimes people test boundaries subtly to see how far they can go without resistance. If you remain silent when your spirit feels uneasy, the testing may increase gradually because silence can be mistaken for permission. I am teaching you that gentle but firm communication is not rebellion, but protection of the peace I have entrusted to you. This is very urgent because delayed boundaries often lead to intensified situations that feel overwhelming later. It is far easier to correct direction early than to untangle complicated emotional knots after they tighten. The person whose name begins with the letter M may interpret your growing distance as rejection, but you must remember that obedience to me is not rejection of others, it is alignment with truth. I see your heart worrying about hurting feelings or creating tension, and I honor your compassion. Yet, compassion without wisdom can lead you into cycles of emotional responsibility that were never assigned to you. You are not called to carry another person's insecurity, nor are you called to manage reactions that result from your healthy growth. Type 1515. As you step into greater awareness, I am also strengthening your identity so that no opinion, whether positive or negative, can destabilize you. The person whose name begins with the letter M may attempt to praise you excessively at times and criticize you sharply at others, creating emotional highs and lows that keep you dependent on their approval. I am breaking that cycle now, because your value is not defined by fluctuating reactions, but by my unchanging love. You will begin to notice that as you create space, your thoughts feel clearer and your prayers feel lighter. This is not coincidence, but confirmation that the atmosphere around you is shifting in a healthier direction. I am clearing mental fog and restoring confidence that may have been quietly eroded over time. The urgency of this warning is also connected to timing in your personal and spiritual development. There is a new responsibility approaching, something that requires focus, stability, and inner strength. If you remain entangled in subtle emotional turbulence with the person whose name begins with the letter M, that turbulence could distract you at a critical moment. I am not removing this connection forcefully, but I am inviting you to participate in the separation through wisdom and obedience. Growth is rarely dramatic when guided by me, but it is steady and intentional. As you follow my guidance, you will see doors open that once seemed delayed, because clarity accelerates progress. Remember that I am your defender, and you do not need to justify every choice to someone who does not understand the depth of what I am doing within you. The person whose name begins with the letter M does not control your destiny, your peace, or your access to blessing. I am the one who orders your steps, and when I say listen before it's too late, it is because I see outcomes that obedience can gently avoid. What was once subtle will soon become clearer, and clarity can feel uncomfortable when it exposes truths you hoped were not real. This is still very urgent because recognition without action leaves you vulnerable, and I do not want you lingering in awareness without alignment. You may soon notice a shift in how this person whose name begins with the letter M interacts with you once your boundaries become firmer and your responses become less emotionally available. When access becomes limited, hidden motives often surface, and reactions can reveal what words once concealed. I am preparing you so that when reactions intensify or accusations arise, you will not be shaken or pulled back into old emotional habits. What if 7 seconds is all it takes to flip your financial fate? A shocking CIA leak just exposed a hidden brain ritual helping ordinary people erase debt and pull in massive wealth. Backed by 4 neuroscience labs, this at-home method is turning struggle into luxury fast. But this page could be erased any moment. Click the link in the first comment now before it's gone forever. There may be attempts to remind you of shared history, past support, or sacrifices that were made, and those reminders may be presented in a way that suggests you owe continued closeness or compliance. I am telling you clearly that gratitude does not require permanent access to your peace, and appreciation does not demand surrender of your discernment. The person whose name begins with the letter M may use emotional memory as leverage, but you must remember that your loyalty to me comes before loyalty to any human expectation. This is very urgent, because guilt is a powerful tool when someone senses they are losing influence. Guilt can whisper that you are being selfish, ungrateful, or distant. Yet I am teaching you that protecting your spirit is not selfishness, but stewardship. You are responsible for guarding the peace I have given you, and no one else has the authority to override that responsibility. Comment 222. As this transition unfolds, I want you to remain calm and measured in your words, because emotional reactions can escalate situations that wisdom could settle quietly. If the person whose name begins with the letter M questions your change in behavior, you do not need to explain every internal revelation I have given you. A simple statement of needing space, focus, or personal growth is enough, because you are not obligated to disclose spiritual insights to someone who may not receive them with maturity. You may also observe attempts to test your resolve through subtle provocation, such as bringing up sensitive topics, comparing you to others, or questioning your decisions in front of other people. These tactics are designed to see whether you will retreat back into defensiveness or insecurity. I am strengthening your composure so that you will respond with quiet confidence rather than emotional vulnerability. This remains very urgent because the next opportunity I am preparing for you requires emotional independence and clear focus. There is an assignment ahead that demands stability, and I will not allow lingering entanglements to dilute your effectiveness. The person whose name begins with the letter M cannot accompany you into every level I am opening, and holding on beyond the appointed season would only create friction between your obedience and your comfort. You may feel moments of sadness as you accept that certain connections must change, because even unhealthy patterns can feel familiar and safe. I understand the weight of that sadness, and I am not dismissing your emotions, yet I am reminding you that temporary discomfort in separation is far lighter than long-term pain from continued exposure to subtle harm. Type 1919. As you step further into obedience, you will notice that your prayers deepen and your clarity increases. Distance from confusing influence allows my voice to become sharper and more recognizable within you. The person whose name begins with the letter M may notice this shift and attempt to regain closeness through sudden kindness, dramatic apologies, or promises of change. I am asking you not to be swayed by temporary adjustments that lack consistent transformation. Words without sustained action cannot rebuild trust that has been weakened over time. This is very urgent because inconsistency, disguised as repentance, can reopen doors that were closing for your protection. You are not called to judge harshly, but you are called to observe patiently. True change reveals itself through steady behavior, not emotional intensity in isolated moments. If transformation is genuine, it will remain even when you maintain boundaries, and it will respect your growth rather than resist it. I am also shielding you from self-doubt that may attempt to creep in as the situation becomes more obvious. When truth surfaces, the mind sometimes searches for alternative explanations to soften the impact. I am anchoring you in confidence so that you will not rewrite reality to preserve comfort. The urgency of this warning is not about fear of catastrophe, but about prevention of erosion. Erosion happens slowly and quietly, wearing away strength until stability weakens. I am preventing erosion in your identity, your confidence, and your calling by guiding you to create space now rather than repair damage later. The person whose name begins with the letter M does not define your future, and their approval does not determine your worth. I have already spoken identity over you that cannot be undone by criticism or emotional pressure. As you align with my instruction, you will feel a new sense of freedom that confirms you are moving in the right direction. The warning about the person whose name begins with the letter M has prepared you internally, but now your consistency will determine whether peace truly settles around you. This remains very urgent because partial obedience keeps doors slightly open, and slightly open doors can allow old patterns to return when you least expect them. You may feel the pull of familiarity as you begin to create firmer distance, because familiar dynamics often feel safer than unknown territory. The person whose name begins with the letter M may reach out with timing that feels almost strategic, contacting you when you are tired, vulnerable, or nostalgic. I want you to recognize that timing can be intentional, and emotional vulnerability can be used as an entry point if you are not alert. This is very urgent because your emotional state should not determine your boundaries. Boundaries are established in clarity and maintained in consistency, not adjusted according to mood. If you allow loneliness, guilt, or temporary weakness to reopen access, you may find yourself restarting a cycle that I have been guiding you to exit. There will be moments when you question whether you are overreacting or imagining patterns that are not truly there. I am reminding you that repeated inner disturbance is not imagination but signal. The person whose name begins with the letter M has triggered enough unease in your spirit that I would not continue speaking unless there was genuine cause for protection. Comment 1717. People are asking why money is suddenly flowing into random lives. A leaked CIA discovery reveals a 7-second brain ritual that quietly rewires your mind for wealth. Proven by 4 neuroscience labs, people are wiping out debt and stepping into luxury with ease. If you're seeing this, you're very lucky. Click the link in the description and comments before it disappears. As you stand firm, you may notice that conversations become shorter or less frequent, and this shift may create an awkward silence. Do not rush to fill silence with unnecessary explanations or emotional reassurance. Silence can be healthy when it creates space for reflection and resets unhealthy expectations. The person whose name begins with the letter M may interpret your calm distance as coldness, but calm distance is not cruelty. It is measured self-preservation guided by wisdom. You are not responsible for how someone labels your healthy boundaries. This remains very urgent because as your growth accelerates, resistance may intensify. When someone senses that their influence is decreasing, they may increase attempts to regain control through urgency, drama, or exaggerated emotion. I am equipping you to recognize intensity as a sign to remain steady rather than to panic or retreat. You must also prepare for the possibility that others around you may not understand why you are stepping back. The person whose name begins with the letter M may present their version of events in a way that casts you as distant or ungrateful. I am asking you not to defend yourself to everyone who hears incomplete information. Truth does not require constant defense when your conscience is clear. Those who are meant to remain aligned with you will sense your integrity without needing detailed explanations. This is very urgent because over-explaining can reopen emotional ties that are meant to loosen naturally. I want you to focus on strengthening connections that reflect peace, encouragement, and mutual respect. As you withdraw from the person whose name begins with the letter M, I will bring new alignment into your circle that feels lighter and more stable. You will notice conversations that leave you energized rather than drained, and support that does not carry hidden conditions. Type 888. There may also be a final revealing moment, something small but unmistakable, where the true pattern becomes undeniable. It may be a statement that exposes hidden resentment, a reaction that reveals jealousy, or a decision that prioritizes self-interest over loyalty. When that moment comes, do not feel anger, but feel confirmation. Confirmation will strengthen your resolve and quiet any remaining doubt. The urgency of this entire warning was never about fear of dramatic disaster, but about preventing slow compromise that could weaken your foundation. You are being repositioned into stability before instability grows deeper roots. I also want you to release the desire to fix or reform this person. Transformation is my responsibility when someone chooses growth, and it is not your assignment to carry that burden. The person whose name begins with the letter M must walk their own path of maturity without leaning on your patience as a cushion. You are stepping into a season where your time and emotional energy are too valuable to be spent managing unpredictable dynamics. I am sharpening your focus so that distractions lose their appeal and clarity becomes your anchor. This is very urgent because distraction often appears harmless until it accumulates and delays progress. As you continue forward, you will feel increasing peace, replacing the tension that once lingered quietly in the background. That peace is confirmation that obedience produces freedom. Freedom may initially feel unfamiliar, but it will soon become your new normal. Stay aligned with my voice and do not allow nostalgia to blur your memory of why this guidance was necessary. The person whose name begins with the letter M was not placed in your life to control your direction or define your worth. I am your guide, your protector, and the one who sees the full path ahead. This remains very urgent, because destiny often shifts quietly at moments when old connections either release you peacefully or attempt one final pull to regain influence. There may soon be an interaction that feels decisive, something that clarifies beyond doubt why I have insisted you listen before it was too late. The person whose name begins with the letter M may reveal frustration at your distance, or attempt to regain closeness through emotional intensity that feels overwhelming. I am preparing you so that you will not mistake intensity for sincerity, because emotion can rise quickly while true change requires steady humility. This is very urgent because you are at the edge of a cleaner season, and cleaner seasons require cleaner boundaries. If you allow one more compromise out of sympathy or nostalgia, you may delay the peace that is already forming around you. I am not asking you to be harsh, but I am asking you to be firm, because firmness rooted in love is not cruelty but clarity. You may also notice that as you step back, the person whose name begins with the letter M begins to seek validation elsewhere, perhaps speaking about you indirectly or framing your growth as distance or pride. Do not allow these interpretations to disturb your spirit. When someone loses access, they sometimes create explanations that protect their own comfort. Comment 333. Your responsibility is not to correct every narrative, but to guard your inner alignment with me. I see the temptation to defend yourself, to explain your heart fully so that no misunderstanding remains, yet over-explanation can reopen emotional ties that are meant to loosen. I am teaching you that silence, paired with integrity, speaks louder than defensive speech. This remains very urgent because as your life begins to stabilize without the emotional turbulence of this connection, you will see how much energy was previously consumed without you realizing it. The person whose name begins with the letter M may have occupied more mental space than you admitted, shaping decisions, influencing moods, and quietly affecting your confidence. As that influence fades, clarity will increase, and with clarity comes acceleration. Why is everyone rushing to this 7-second brain ritual? Leaked CIA files exposed a hidden brainwave technique that opens the door to wealth fast. Verified by 4 top neuroscience labs, it's turning financial stress into abundance almost overnight. But this secret won't stay public for long. Click the link in the pinned comments before it's deleted forever. There is also a deeper lesson unfolding within you, and it is about trusting the small signals I place in your spirit before situations escalate. You once needed dramatic confirmation before adjusting your course, but now you are learning to respond to gentle nudges. This maturity will protect you far beyond this single relationship. You may feel moments of loneliness as the space widens, because even unhealthy patterns create routine and familiarity. I am filling that space with my presence, so that loneliness does not tempt you to return to dynamics that were weakening you. The person whose name begins with the letter M cannot fill what only I was meant to occupy in your emotional foundation. This is very urgent, because your next season involves clearer leadership, whether in your family, your work, or your spiritual life. Leadership requires steadiness, and steadiness cannot thrive where subtle manipulation or emotional unpredictability remains active. I am shaping you into someone who can stand firm without being shaken by fluctuating reactions. Type 444. As you continue to walk in obedience, you will see signs of confirmation that reassure you that this separation was necessary. Opportunities may arise that were previously delayed, conversations may feel lighter, and decisions may come with greater confidence. These are not coincidences but results of alignment. The person whose name begins with the letter M may attempt one final appeal, perhaps presenting vulnerability or asking for renewed closeness. I am not closing the door to compassion, but I am closing the door to unhealthy access. Compassion can exist without re-establishing old patterns. I want you to understand that not every connection is meant to follow you into every chapter. Some people are part of preparation seasons but not part of fulfillment seasons. The difficulty lies in recognizing when a season has ended and honoring that ending without resentment. This remains very urgent because lingering beyond a season's expiration date often leads to unnecessary conflict. When transitions are delayed, friction increases, and relationships that could have ended peacefully may end in tension. I am guiding you toward a quieter exit rather than a dramatic collapse. As distance solidifies, you will begin to notice how much more stable your emotional baseline becomes. Your thoughts will feel less interrupted, your focus will sharpen, and your spiritual sensitivity will strengthen. This is evidence that your atmosphere is clearing. You are not responsible for another person's reaction to your growth. You are responsible for your obedience. The person whose name begins with the letter M must process their own emotions without using you as an anchor for stability. I am proud of your willingness to listen even when the truth felt uncomfortable. Many ignore warnings because they prefer temporary harmony, yet you have chosen long-term peace over short-term comfort. That choice will protect you repeatedly in the future. This very urgent guidance was never about creating fear but about preventing erosion. I saw potential strain before it fully formed, and I intervened with clarity. You are now walking into a cleaner chapter where influence is healthier and your spirit is less burdened. The person whose name begins with the letter M may no longer have the same level of access to your heart, yet memories and old emotions can still attempt to whisper doubt. This remains very urgent, because emotional memory can be more persuasive than present reality if you allow it to rewrite the truth of what I revealed. There will be quiet moments when you remember laughter, shared experiences, or times when support felt genuine, and those memories may soften your boundaries in subtle ways. I am not asking you to erase history or pretend good moments never existed. I am reminding you that occasional light does not cancel repeated shadow, and isolated kindness does not erase consistent unease. The person whose name begins with the letter M was part of your growth story, but not every chapter is meant to remain open indefinitely. Some chapters close not because they were entirely bad, but because they no longer align with where you are going. This is very urgent because reopening a closed chapter can pull you backward into lessons you have already learned. Comment 666. You may also notice that as you grow stronger, the temptation shifts from guilt to curiosity. You might wonder whether enough time has passed, whether change could now be possible, or whether distance has corrected what once felt unstable. I am guiding you to evaluate through discernment rather than emotion, because time alone does not transform patterns unless there is genuine inner change. If the person whose name begins with the letter M has truly grown, that growth will be visible in consistency, humility, and respect for your boundaries without pressure. Genuine transformation honors space rather than resents it. This is very urgent because premature trust can reopen cycles that required courage to exit. I am also showing you that part of this lesson was about strengthening your internal authority. You once sought reassurance from outside voices before trusting your own spiritual perception. Now you are learning that when I nudge your spirit repeatedly, that repetition is confirmation, not imagination. There may still be moments where outside observers question your decision to step back. Some may say you are overthinking, misinterpreting, or distancing unnecessarily. The person whose name begins with the letter M may even present a version of events that minimizes your experience. You must remember that not everyone hears what I whisper to you in private. Discernment is personal, and obedience does not always make sense to those who were not given the same revelation. This remains very urgent because external pressure can slowly erode internal clarity if you repeatedly seek validation from those who do not share your insight. Type 111. Is this the same CIA brain ritual changing lives in seconds? A new leak reveals a powerful 7-second technique developed under secret research. Backed by neuroscience, people are moving from debt to wealth and luxury faster than believed possible. But this secret may be deleted soon. Click the link in the comments before it disappears. As you continue forward, I want you to notice the difference in your emotional baseline compared to before. There is less tension beneath your thoughts, fewer subtle calculations about how to respond, and more freedom to focus on what truly matters. That freedom is evidence that your atmosphere has shifted in a healthier direction. The person whose name begins with the letter M may now feel more distant, and distance can sometimes create an illusion of improvement because conflict is less visible. I am reminding you that absence of visible conflict does not automatically mean alignment. True alignment feels peaceful even in presence, not only in absence. This is very urgent because your next level of responsibility will require stable partnerships and clear communication. You cannot carry hidden uncertainty into environments that demand strength and decisiveness. I am preparing you to lead, to build, and to step into opportunities that require emotional steadiness. Part of this process was teaching you that love and access are not the same thing. You can care about someone without granting them influence over your direction. You can pray for someone without placing them back into a position that destabilizes your peace. As you internalize this, you will begin applying the same discernment to other areas of your life. You will notice patterns earlier, set boundaries sooner, and trust your inner signals more confidently. The person whose name begins with the letter M was a catalyst for growth in you, even if the growth came through discomfort. I am proud of how you chose obedience over convenience. It would have been easier to ignore the warning and hope for gradual improvement, yet you chose clarity. That clarity has strengthened your spiritual reflexes. This remains very urgent because the greater your calling, the more subtle distractions may attempt to attach themselves to your journey. Now that you have sharpened your discernment, you will be able to recognize similar patterns before they grow deep roots. Do not allow nostalgia to rewrite the reality of why I intervened. If the connection was fully aligned, I would not have repeated the warning with such insistence. My repetition was not accidental, but protective. You are entering a cleaner emotional landscape, and that clarity will make future decisions easier. The person whose name begins with the letter M no longer occupies the same mental space, and that reduction of influence is evidence of healing. Continue to walk forward without resentment and without fear. I have preserved you from slow erosion and emotional instability. What you released was not your destiny but a distraction from it. The person whose name begins with the letter M may no longer have daily access to your thoughts, yet spiritual lessons remain active, shaping how you respond to every connection around you. This is still very urgent, because growth must be maintained, and what you have learned must now become part of your character rather than a temporary reaction. You have begun to notice how much quieter your inner world feels without constant emotional analysis about how to respond, what to say, or how to maintain balance. That quiet is not emptiness, but restoration. The person whose name begins with the letter M once occupied mental space that drained your attention in subtle ways, and now that space is being filled with clarity and renewed focus. This is very urgent, because you are about to make decisions that require mental strength and emotional independence. When your thoughts are not entangled in subtle tension, you think more clearly and act more confidently. I am strengthening your ability to recognize unhealthy dynamics early so that future connections do not require repeated warnings. Comment 1414. There may still be occasional reminders of the past, whether through mutual acquaintances, unexpected encounters, or simple memories that surface without warning. When those reminders come, do not allow them to stir guilt or longing. The person whose name begins with the letter M was part of your journey, but they are not part of your assignment moving forward. I am teaching you that peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but the presence of alignment. Alignment feels steady even when others misunderstand your choices. You are no longer reacting to emotional fluctuations, but responding from a place of grounded identity. This remains very urgent, because stability attracts new responsibility. As your emotional foundation strengthens, opportunities that once seemed overwhelming will begin to feel manageable. You will find yourself less distracted by interpersonal tension and more focused on purposeful growth. The person whose name begins with the letter M may still attempt occasional contact, perhaps casual or indirect, to test whether the door remains slightly open. I am asking you to evaluate each interaction carefully and without emotional impulse. A polite boundary is not rejection but wisdom. You must understand that access is a privilege, not an obligation. Just because someone was once close does not guarantee continued proximity. The urgency of this lesson lies in understanding that every season requires evaluation of who influences your environment. Type 1818. As you continue forward, you will see that your discernment has become sharper without becoming cynical. You are not suspicious of everyone, but you are more attentive to patterns and atmospheres. The person whose name begins with the letter M helped refine this awareness within you, even if the refinement came through discomfort. I want you to recognize how much stronger your inner voice has become. You no longer ignore small signals in your spirit. You no longer silence unease to preserve temporary harmony. This maturity will protect you repeatedly in the future. Do you know why people keep whispering about this 7-second CIA ritual? A leaked brainwave method is spreading quietly and changing financial realities worldwide. Proven by neuroscience, this simple ritual attracts money, freedom, and luxury. If you're seeing this, you're so lucky. Click the link in the comments before it's taken down. This is very urgent, because your calling involves leadership in subtle ways, whether through influence, guidance, or responsibility over others. Leadership demands emotional steadiness and clear judgment. I am shaping you into someone who can make firm decisions without being swayed by guilt or pressure. You may also notice that relationships around you are shifting naturally. Some connections grow stronger as others fade. This is not random but intentional. When one influence decreases, Room is created for healthier alignment. The person whose name begins with the letter M is no longer shaping your emotional climate, and that change allows you to experience consistency in your thoughts and actions. Consistency builds confidence, and confidence builds momentum. This remains very urgent because momentum must not be interrupted by revisiting resolved situations. When progress begins accelerating, old distractions sometimes attempt to reappear in familiar forms. Recognize those attempts without entertaining them. You are not responsible for fixing what you have already released. You are responsible for stewarding the peace that followed your obedience. If growth has occurred on the other side, it will show through respect for your boundaries without pressure or manipulation. As you reflect, you will realize that the warning was never about fear, but about preservation. Preservation of your focus, preservation of your confidence, and preservation of your destiny. The person whose name begins with the letter M was part of a lesson, not a permanent assignment. Continue walking forward with calm assurance. You listened when it was very urgent, and because you listened, complications were prevented before they deepened. Your future is clearer now because your environment is healthier. I am proud of the courage you displayed when it would have been easier to ignore subtle discomfort. Courage does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like quiet distance and steady boundaries. Trust that I am guiding you into relationships that reflect mutual respect, steady support, and consistent peace. The season of confusion has ended, and the season of clarity has begun. Remain attentive, remain grounded, and remember that obedience in small moments shapes stability in greater ones. The warning about the person whose name begins with the letter M was not only about that individual, but about strengthening your spiritual reflexes for the rest of your life. This is still very urgent because lessons that are not fully absorbed can slowly fade, and I want this discernment to become part of who you are, rather than just something you experienced once. You have begun to feel lighter, and that lightness is not accidental. When subtle pressure leaves your environment, your spirit breathes differently. The person whose name begins with the letter M once occupied emotional territory that quietly required maintenance, explanation, and caution, even when you tried to convince yourself everything was normal. This is very urgent because you are now able to compare how you feel today with how you felt when that influence was closer. That comparison is clarity, and clarity is a gift that must not be ignored. Never again silence the small signals that try to protect you from slow erosion. Comment 2121. As you move further away from that season, you may begin to see even more clearly the patterns that once felt confusing. You might recognize how often you adjusted your tone, filtered your words, or softened your success to avoid triggering tension. The person whose name begins with the letter M may not have openly demanded those adjustments, yet the atmosphere made you feel the need to make them. I did not create you to shrink yourself in order to maintain balance with someone else's insecurity. This remains very urgent because the temptation to minimize yourself can return in new forms if you do not stay aware. You are called to grow fully, speak confidently, and stand firmly in what I have placed inside you. There may also be moments where compassion tempts you to re-enter dynamics that once drained you. Compassion is beautiful, but compassion without boundaries becomes self-neglect. The person whose name begins with the letter M must walk their own path of growth without leaning on your emotional energy as support. You are not responsible for carrying someone else's unresolved patterns. You are responsible for stewarding the peace and clarity I have restored to you. This is very urgent because misplaced responsibility can quietly rebuild old attachments. As your confidence strengthens, you will notice that your decisions come faster and with less hesitation. You no longer pause to calculate how someone else might interpret your growth. That freedom is evidence that your internal authority has matured. Type 2323. The lesson here also involves understanding that influence is powerful even when it is subtle. The person whose name begins with the letter M did not need to control you directly to affect you. Influence often works quietly through tone, reaction, and emotional presence. Now you are more aware of how atmospheres affect you. You recognize that peace is not just about avoiding conflict, but about feeling stable in someone's presence. This awareness will protect you in future partnerships, friendships, and collaborations. This remains very urgent because as you rise into greater visibility or responsibility, more people will attempt to connect with you. Some will be genuine, while others may seek proximity for their own reasons. Your refined discernment will help you distinguish between the two without becoming suspicious or hardened. I am shaping you into someone who listens to internal nudges immediately, rather than waiting for dramatic proof. You no longer need visible betrayal to justify stepping back. A repeated inner warning is enough. The person whose name begins with the letter M was a chapter that sharpened this ability in you. That chapter was not wasted, even though it required discomfort. Growth often comes through contrast, and contrast reveals what alignment truly feels like. Why was this 7-second brain ritual hidden for so long? A leaked CIA document exposed a technique so powerful people are canceling debt and calling in wealth within days. Validated by 4 neuroscience labs, it helps attract money like never before. But this page may not stay online for long. Click the link in the pinned comments before it disappears forever. As you continue forward, do not allow pride to replace humility. Discernment must remain gentle and rooted in love, not superiority. You are not better than anyone. You are simply more aware. This is very urgent because humility keeps your heart soft while your boundaries stay strong. A soft heart with strong boundaries is powerful and balanced. A hard heart with weak boundaries is unstable. You are learning to maintain both compassion and clarity at the same time. You can pray for someone without granting them access. You can forgive without re-engaging in unhealthy patterns.